I'm here with Ryan McMahon, and you've had a more complicated professional background than most people I interview. Do you mind giving me a quick summary of that background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, I'd say I'm a builder. The thing that ties my entire career together is I've always decided to build things. My first job out of university was designing the Sonicare electric toothbrush. I met a bunch of mad scientists at the University of Washington. I worked on early prototypes. I commercialized the technology, and I wound up scaling production at about 60,000 units a month while I was there. And what's cool about that experience was we built a product and a company from nothing, and that kind of that energy and excitement fueled everything else for the whole rest of my career. And so I decided I wanted to build my own companies over time, and so I spent the whole rest of my career trying to figure out how to do that. So I became a sales guy. I learned how to sell electronic components based on my electrical engineering background. I decided to earn a master's of business so I could fill in some more skills. And then after grad school, I joined a bunch of different startups. I did a chip design startup, team collaboration for EDA designers. I did a digital music company, legal digital music before iTunes in the Napster days. I left that company and joined a company doing medical devices to detect breast cancer, whether a tumor was benign or malignant in a non-invasive way. That was kind of interesting. I founded a company for sharing sensitive information for first responders. And then I did IT compliance, high performance computing, mobile gaming, and then ultimately wound up here at Autodesk. So yeah, lots of different skills and experience, primarily all around building products. And that's what got me here.
Okay, so eventually you did get to Autodesk, but before your role now as director and general manager of Informed Design, and we'll get to that. What were you doing at Autodesk before then?
So coming to Autodesk was this weird full circle moment for me. I came here and I wound up working on the factory design suite and the product design suite. So working on tools that people were using to design and build their own products and to manufacture those products. So it was pretty thrilling coming from, I had this in my background and then I wound up working on the tools that help more people do that kind of thing. As my career progressed, I became responsible for primarily the factory design utilities. And so it's how do you lay out a factory? We built capabilities for discrete event simulation. How do I build a process model and simulate the function of the factory and identify bottlenecks and things like that? We did some generative factory layout capabilities, and then we also built a production management system called Fusion Production, where we could help get rid of the paper travelers that are commonly used today and do that electronically. So that all kind of set me up. The last one, Fusion Production, set me up to work with the newly formed Industrialized construction group because they wanted to leverage some of these capabilities, and that's how I first became aware of industrialized construction here at Autodesk.
Okay, I guess that leads me to this question. So how long ago was this concept of Autodesk Informed Design? You mentioned the construction phase, but specifically this Autodesk Informed Design division. When was that starting to be developed? What were some of the early ideas and goals that kind of led you and Autodesk and whoever else was involved to kind of go down this path?
First and foremost, I got to say, Autodesk is filled with brilliant people. And that is one of the things I love most about working here. As I was working with the Industrialized Construction Group, I got to learn more about how AEC works and, the way that buildings are designed and how most projects are designed from scratch, from the ground up. And I was thinking about that and coming from my manufacturing background, it's like, why aren't we reusing design? Why aren't we taking advantage of repeatability? And just started asking those questions and talking to my peers, my colleagues. So I was talking. There's a product manager, Dave Reum, and a software architect, Andy Atkinson, and we were just talking about this. And they're like, "Well, what if you could define these products that are in construction as building products with allowable variation, and then you could generate a Revit family and drop it in a building project?" And I'm like, "That sounds kind of cool." So they had this general idea of linking a mechanical engineering tool with the design tools about 5 years ago. And so we started working on, what do the services look like? It was kind of a skunk works thing in the middle of everything else that was going on. Um, you know, what happened as we were developing that, we built some momentum, and we were in the Autodesk Construction Solutions group and the incubation board. So there's three incubation teams here at Autodesk, and they're all led by a board, which includes several members of C staff. They invited us to present our idea to see if it was something they were interested in funding. And when you look at industrialized construction and the trends in the industry and how much is happening there, and they're looking at our technology, like, this is something that's really compelling that we would like to invest more in to explore creating new value for our customers. So we've been in incubation for literally 2 years. I think it's 2 years this week.
It's a really nice background. But now can you get to what Autodesk Informed Design is, kind of summarize in your own words and explain how it can improve the infrastructure industry?
Fundamentally, we think the future of AEC is industrialized. We have to take advantage of repeatability. We have to do that so we can take advantage of scale and all of the benefits that come from that. I can, optimize my processes, reduce waste, improve quality, create safer work environments. And so, those are all kind of the industry benefits. The capabilities are really about making sure that we make better decisions early on in the design process, that when we make design choices about a building, about infrastructure, about, water systems, things like that, can we make sure that those are based on something that is known accurate and known manufacturable? How do we inform the design process? That's really where our name comes from. And so the functional premise is, if I make a lot of something that goes into many different buildings or many different projects, can I make that available to an architect at design time so they can say, oh, I can interact. I have this component that performs a function in my project. Can I customize it? And how do I make sure? And when I do customize that, I get something that's exactly that I want, but I know that it's accurate. And if I try to, go outside of those bounds, we're constrained to only the things that the supplier of that component knows how to make. So in that way, the architect knows they have accuracy. They know that something's manufacturable, and so the certainty of their projects go up. And if the certainty of your project goes up, the opposite, that's the risk. The risk goes way down. And the more of these kinds of components that get put into the project, the fewer errors you have, the more certainty you have, and the less risk you have overall.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how informed design is a step in that process? How it does synthesize design and manufacturing? How does it work?
What's interesting is we see examples of industrialized construction out there already. There's a lot of people who recognize this sort of power of repeatability. We see it in precast concrete. There are companies like Lang O'Rourke and others Goldbeck, who said, "Hey, we make a lot of similar things. Can we define them as products and reuse them within our own design processes?" However, you wind up with something that's sort of vertically integrated. It's like, not the whole building is precast concrete. What do you do about the other systems that go into the building? So our premise for this is that pattern of repeatability is a general pattern applicable to most of the things that go into a building. Can we build capabilities that allow everybody else to function in this way? I think I said, we do precast concrete, we see rebar, we see framing, we see there's a handful of other things where systems already exist today. We're just taking an approach that generalizes that a little bit more.
Okay, so I watched some demos, and they're really exciting, that showed how these customizable predefined products were added into these drawings, and then it works well. But how do you select what those predefined building products are? Like, what is the process? I mean, it can't just be everything, right? You somehow have to get them into the database of options, right?
So the process that we have chosen to use, we're building this initial solution. We're looking at how do you connect an organization. The context of our solution is within a single organizational boundary. We use Autodesk Construction Cloud as that boundary. When you define a building product, you publish it into ACC, into a project and a folder that you want to, that's where you're specifying your catalog of your components. As an architect working on a new building project, you can discover the building products by navigating to that project and folder to find the catalog of components that are available to you to build with. So you pick the template, the building product. You are shown a form with the controls that are the things that you can adjust in customizing this particular thing, and that's how you discover and interact with that particular content. Can I add, that's just how it works today. What I think is really interesting is there's tremendous benefits. If I make a lot of a product and I support many different projects, I think there's a huge compelling value to make my building products publicly discoverable. So that as an architect, I could discover, I could look up, on Building Connected or a solution like that, or a publicly discoverable catalog, all the suppliers of a similar kind of product, and try them out within the scope of my project. And then, you start to unlock a whole bunch of other kinds of value, like what's the incremental cost of sales if somebody can discover our products and they design with those products. I've effectively won that seat. If they put something in their project and they know it's manufacturable and accurate, that's pretty cool. So I think there's some potential down the road of working across that organizational boundary and making the catalog of products publicly discoverable.
So you mean by publicly discoverable that it's not inside that Autodesk umbrella, that there's kind of just a general that could be used by other software programs and other designers, but at least everyone has the same components that they're putting into a database. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if we make them publicly discoverable, whatever the vehicle is for doing that, in our ecosystem today, we have Building Connected. That's a potential location. We have, Autodesk Docs is working on capabilities for making catalogs publicly discoverable. It just becomes a place for people to say, hey, what are things that I can build with it in the beginning before it's a big mature marketplace. You have to decide as partners, we're putting our stuff here, here's where you find it. As the more of this happens, you could see maturity where things become more discoverable. There's a service that says, hey, help me find construction products that I can include in my project. And at some point, who knows, there's maybe even a construction marketplace where all of this, even enables commerce. That's not something Autodesk is interested in doing, but it is something that fundamentally changes the way the industry works.
So there's Autodesk Informed Design for Revit and Inventor. Are
Yes,
those the only two options? Is there a standalone version of Autodesk Informed Design?
that's a great question. We are not a standalone product. We are a workflow. We connect different personas performing different tasks along this overall workflow on our design and make platform. So we want a product engineer to use a mechanical engineering tool like Inventor and publish their products to our platform, to our cloud, so that an architect using Revit can leverage that content authored in Inventor within their Revit product. And that's a novel and unique thing that exists with this particular solution. So we're using the cloud to connect these two products that are used in very different disciplines and create a valuable workflow.
Can you talk a little bit about sustainability and scalability and how this is going to be able to help both of those aspects?
We talk to the sustainability group a lot here, and it's sustainability super important to Autodesk and to our customers. And my lens on this is, generally speaking, all things manufacturing lead to better outcomes for sustainability. If I can get to repeatability, I can optimize my process, which means I can reduce my waste. And so it's both a quality and a cost thing, but if I have less waste, that's good for the planet. So they're inextricably linked in this particular way. The repeatability, in addition to scale and waste, you get improved quality. You have the opportunity to take advantage of the latest and greatest technology, so you get better performance. You can, with the immersion of new materials, we have an opportunity to explore what's possible with new materials that might not work in the traditional ways that we build today. There's a tremendous amount of sort of open-ended things that we can explore now that really aren't possible with the traditional ways that we build today when you are working in a factory environment, when you are productizing what you're making and trying to take advantage of all of those things.
So I like to get all these interviews and conversations geared toward our core audience, which is these civil and structural engineers and designers.
Yeah.
What do they need to know about industrialized construction in general that they currently may not?
So I'm not super familiar with the infrastructure world, so I don't know what their basis of information is. But what I would say is the most important concepts are, there's a lot of infrastructure that gets built with repeatable patterns of assemblies and construction methodology, And anytime you can look at where do we have repeatability and can I apply this notion of productization to those things that we make a lot of with definable variation, those are all opportunities to embrace industrialized construction and all the values that come with working in that particular way. So I think that's the way to begin to identify the opportunities or what's possible. And then the second step is really, what are the processes that we can then take advantage of if we're working in a repeatable way? How does that unlock new potential in the ways that we work to deliver additional value to the business?
Okay, how might you suggest to some of these engineers and designers who want to learn more but aren't sure how? What are some ways you recommend to kind of get caught up to speed, and what's the latest in this particular environment?
Of course, Autodesk has a bunch of information on our website about what we're doing there. I think that some of the resources that I think are really particularly compelling are around lean manufacturing. They talk about lean construction as well. Those are opportunities to explore. A book that I found really valuable, it's not really about manufacturing or construction either, is The Goal. I can't remember the author's name, but it talks about the process of sequencing of things and how you build a process to be optimal and to take advantage of setting a goal objective and defining your processes around that. That is actually a really interesting book to figure out how do you take advantage of some of these means and methods.
So I imagine not everyone is like me and kind of already bought into this. How do you persuade those architects and designers who are pretty set in their ways that they want complete freedom? They don't want to be restrained by, kind of pre-designed elements. And how do you try and talk them into something along the lines of industrialized construction and Autodesk informed design? Like what's your
I,
best argument for them?
I love that question because, we have this conversation a lot. It's actually a much easier discussion and conversation, and very little arm wrestling happens here. The reality is that all architects work with constraints today. If they have a budget, they have a constraint. Uh, and so they're used to working with constraints. The challenge is that they don't often know what constraints are real and aren't because they don't know what can be made. And so what we're saying is that we make it a whole lot easier to understand what your constraints are and how do you work with them and do that in a fast and efficient way. And once you can use the constraints for a certain set of things, and do it quickly, it frees up your time to work on the things that are much more unknown. So it actually, using the constraints frees up more time to work on the things where they don't have constraints, and are largely the things they probably want to be an architect for. Anyways, I want to do the function of the building. I want to do the aesthetically pleasing facade and atrium and things like that. I don't care about the fire stairs and the bathrooms and the walls in general, right?
We're cruising right along and making good time. So I'm wondering, can you give me like a description? Let's perhaps say someone like who isn't able to watch like a video of how this works to kind of describe a little bit of a step-by-step process of what kind of the industrialized construction design and using Autodesk informed design might look like. Just kind of a quick
Yeah. The way
description.
the way that I describe a workflow is to say, hey, look, I'm working. I'm a subcontractor, fabricator. I make stairs, awnings, balconies, things like that, and I make a lot of them, and I serve many, many different building projects. Well, because I make a lot of them, I want to define them as a product using Autodesk Inventor, and I want to say I can, I have constraints on these items like minimum and maximum on certain dimensions. I have materials choices, colors, things like that. And when I'm authoring my construction product, I want to define what those particular values are as rules. And informed design provides the function for defining what those particular rules are. The part of the process then is to say, okay, what do you want the other users of this template to be able to create using this template? Clearly, Revit families is important for putting them into the building project, but do I want to be able to create a bill of materials, shop drawings, CAD neutral formats, and others? So that becomes part of the definition of the template of the three things that or the products that you know how to make as a fabricator and subcontractor. And so if you're working on a building project, the architect can say, hey, I need to put a balcony in here. And they can navigate to their catalog where you published where the fabricator published their particular content and say, I want to put in a balcony like this. I want to make it, 3 meters wide. I want to make it 1.5 meters deep. And I want it to be this particular color, and now I want to put it in my Revit project. And so taking those input choices and the inventor template that was authored for it, we will create a Revit family to put inside the building project. So now inside the building project, you have a Revit family with details and a link back to the template that was used to create it. And you repeat that for all of the different products that are in a building. And that's pretty straightforward. And then when it's time to actually fabricate the building, the project is committed, or you need to build a quote, the fabricator can then say, hey, here's the building project. Let me take every instance of a balcony that they put in there and all the variations of them and generate the outputs. I want to build a material for all of them. I want shop drawings for all of them so that I can order my materials and queue up and schedule my work to make these things based on the drawings that are created for those unique balconies for that project. That is kind of the general flow through our system, and the different personas and how they interact with the tools. This might be repetitive, but I really truly believe that the only way the AEC industry changes is by adopting industrialized construction methods. The only way they get more efficient is if they embrace repeatability, which means they will manufacture things, which means they will define products, which means they will begin to design with products. And the net benefits of working in that particular way will be at least as impactful as the Industrial Revolution. We're just, applying it now for the AEC industry. I think it is that impactful and that significant a change for the industry.